Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Perlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Perlman.
Hello. We're going to be talking about poems about the environment with my guest, Carolyn Howard Johnson. She is a multi-genre writer in fiction, poetry, and nonfiction. She was formerly an instructor with the UCLA Extension Writers. She has won many awards, including Woman of the Year in Arts and Entertainment from the California Legislature. Her book, Imperfect Echoes, was honored by Writer's Digest, and she has received local awards for working for tolerance, especially covered in her book, Imperfect Echoes. She has written many books, including being co-author of Celebration series of chapbooks, Sublime Planet, as well as author of The Frugal Editor, Do-It-Yourself Editing Secrets. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
It's very exciting to be with you. We've known each other for a long time.
And I certainly enjoy reading your poems, especially since I was very involved in coordinating the first Earth Day in 1970. You actually created a book, Sublime Planet, which honored Earth Day for the world and the universe. Could you tell us why you picked this theme? Because Earth Day is really every day.
And I do say that. I use that as one of my mottos when I promote the book. So I do say every day.
In fact, you were honored by Dr. Bob Rich's Literature for the Environment Award for that book.
Yes, Dr. Bob Rich. He's also from Australia, and he has an award contest, but it includes a list of reading for people to find environmental reading that might interest them. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful project. It gives people a place to go to find creative work as well as nonfiction work about the environment and know that it was vetted, that they're going to find something of value when they go there and use it as inspiration for their reading.
In fact, you have a quote by Greenpeace: "No dictator can monopolize the sun, no autocrat can control the wind." And you added, "and neither should they be used to threaten the planet with annihilation."
Yeah, I couldn't resist.
Let's begin with hearing one of your poems about endangered species from that book.
Okay, so that one is a prize winner that actually won $1,000 for me, and I kind of figure that I'll probably never make that much from a single poem again as long as I live. It was sponsored by an American company that does fountain pens, so I kind of saw the relation between fountain pens and the environment and thought they'd be interested in something like that. Their company is called Franklin Christoph. So the winning poem, then I included in Sublime Planet, that I co-wrote with Magdalena Ball, and I'll read that for you. Endangered species, a dragon hiding as dragons do, to pounce upon prey, shock them into submission with forked tongue, spiked tail, blue-green scales, brimstone breath. But not a sea dragon. This nearly misnamed a seahorse, dainty, disguises herself in briny fronds, sways with the current, her delicate horn-shaped snout trumps silence. Long like a dragon, long as a water lily stem, soft and presumably slick, she flourishes her leaf-like fins, the translucent shade of her underwater forest of amber seaweed pads exactly matches her dance to that of the kelp, ballet in slow motion. So the visitor to her under-ocean home will not see her. She will take them by surprise with tenderness.
What motivated you to include a dragon? Because obviously that's not a real creature here on this planet.
No, but we do have sea creatures that are actually called sea dragons. This one was on display at the Long Beach Aquarium when my husband and I visited there. And I've always liked sea dragons. For one thing, the female sea dragon lays her eggs in the male. He gets to do the painful thing of having birth. As a species, they always intrigued me. And when I saw this one, she was quite big. Most of the sea dragons I had read about in National Geographic and places like that were quite tiny. She was very long, about 1.5 feet long, and I just stood there in trance. And then I thought about calling her a dragon. I mean, a dragon, really. Anything so beautiful and so graceful. And so the contrast between what I had accidentally observed in her and the reality of the dragon image just didn't seem to coincide. And then I thought about it in terms of environmental purposes and thought that she was a good model for showing that sometimes tenderness is the way rather than brimstone and fireworks.
Every animal can truly be an inspiration, but I find inspiration, as you have, in going into nature, into natural areas. And you wrote a poem when you took a hike in the Sierra Madres in Mexico in a jungle that also was near a white beach. Could you share this poem, Sacred Lesson?
It's a sacred lesson from the Sierra Madre. It's one of my favorites. It was published in a journal near Sacramento, California, the capital of our state. Really enjoy travel too. My husband and I traveled to more than 91 countries.
This poem is from your book, Imperfect Echoes, in a section titled Nations, Tranquil Self-Destruction.
Right. I'll read it for you. It's Sacred Lesson from the Sierra Madre, and it's about a huge tree that the guide talked about on our hike, a tree that I'd never seen one like it and never knew anything like it, near a jungle path wending to La Playa at Punta Monterey. This white fig giant, they say Buddha sat among its roots. This monster tree, this lord of the slope, once a sprout, peaked from forest desiccate, once then wrapped its tentacles around a host, spiraled upwards, corkscrew coils the color of ash. Once the twists widened, revealed its ill-fated prey through keyholes, choking, strangling its prey. Once an unwelcome guest, his windows seal themselves tight. Now, the sole owner of this plot, after decades he stands, his own tree, roots sunk to nourish himself. Along comes another sapling, pushes its tender sprout above the moldering forest floor, and leans toward the Lord. Long years of learning not to trust its own kind, the Lord seeps his poisonous sap into the nourishment around his roots. He immune, but not this youth. Centuries beyond, the giant drops his massive body, dies not in the stranglehold of another tree, but because it is his time. There, a gap in the canopy above where the sky now shows blue, finally leaving space for the next generation.
Trees are so incredible. Plants are equally important to the ecosystem, and there are so many different trees and plants that we can write about. It's really wonderful that you recognize the importance of these creatures on this planet.
I think creatures is a good word that you used, Nancy, because when I saw this tree and heard about it, it was the first time I ever thought of a tree as being a creature, and they actually live off the lives of other trees younger than themselves before they die that natural death. And they don't die that natural death until they're really, really, really ancient. So they eat many trees along the way, trees that they're related to, trees the same as they are. And I thought about how that relates to humankind.
There are so many different kinds of inspiring plants and animals, but life has so many moments that inspire us as well. You were also inspired in your travels to Malta and wrote a poem, Impervious Stones of Malta. What are those?
Let me read the poem. Trusted stone walls tell tales of ancient warriors' barricades, built beneath the sea to force invaders off their ships to swim or drown. Medieval forts keep conquerors at bay. Ruts, hollows, megaliths beyond the shore hint of secret cities. Friendly rubble for fences separate fields. so neighbors do not stray or go astray. Maltese homes do not burn.
Stone is a very valuable material.
Yeah, and Malta's just such a lovely place.
You actually have a poem called The Day America Died. What is that about?
That one I wrote riding in a car home from skiing in Mammoth, and started taking notes as we drove through Carson City, Nevada. That's the capital of Nevada. This year I put it in my Imperfect Echoes book and entered it in a contest. It was a hard-to-win contest. It was one for publishing in a very famous poetry journal called just The Poetry Journal. And it was founded in 1918. And I was so happy. I never thought I would get published there. It was just so hard to get into.
Now you can share it with us.
So, The Day America Died. Historic US 395, Carson City in winter. Whistle Stop Inn poised for demolition. Old Nugget Casino's lights pale against the setting sun. Heidi's Family Restaurant celebrates its demise with balloons, red as noon, now the color of aging blood. To the east, the state's elegant home nudged aside by a new granite monolith. There is a spit-shine strip center, Burger King. The 6 o'clock news tells us another bomb slaughters 16. No, now 19. Next morning, Rushbaugh condemns free speechers who want their soldiers home.
It is so critical that we provide a voice for what is happening in our society, both for the environment, both for society. And I'm also pleased that your many books, that you provide proceeds from them to nonprofit organizations, whether or not it's Amnesty International or World Wildlife Fund. There's so many worthy causes. Do you have a favorite?
Not really. I spread things around a bit. My newest book is The Frugal Editor, 3rd edition of one of my how-to books for writers. I chose to give the funds for that to PEN organization, which is obviously PEN, and it's an organization for writers, but they do a lot of wonderful things by providing seminars, etc., for underprivileged students who would otherwise not have access to the same kind of training that I was giving to UCLA students when I was there.
Let us hope that these new writers, poets, use your book, The Frugal Editor, Do-It-Yourself Editing Secrets, to write more about the environment, because we need the inspiration, we need the messages out there, and you have done such a great job in your books to help people write, in providing poems in Imperfect Echoes and in Sublime Planet. Thank you so very much for sharing your poems, and of course I encourage everyone to get your books and read more about your experiences with nature, animals, and plants.
Thank you so much for doing this, Nancy. You spread the word about environmental issues, and I am so grateful.
Thank you. How do they find out about your books? You have numerous websites.
Yes, the website that just has a page just for poetry, you access it by a little down arrow on the home page, is called howtodoitfrugally.com.
Or if they go to your website, remember to use the hyphen in your name, CarolynHoward-Johnson.com.
Right.
I'd like to thank you so very much for sharing some of your work with us. Thank you for being my guest.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Nancy.
I have been speaking with Carolyn Howard-Johnson, who is a writer of fiction, poetry, and nonfiction. I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.